Start with contracting sprites. Chapter 291, Heading South, Challenging Along the Way. The rain poured heavily. There weren't many pedestrians on the originally bustling road, only cars continued to pass through, splashing water half a meter high. Su Hao led the slightly disguised dumb unicorn and walked slowly. The water stains automatically parted when he stepped onto the road. His shoes wouldn't get wet even if he stepped on them. He didn't raise an umbrella, but there was a curved sky screen blocking the bean-sized raindrops outside. When he passed by, the passerby stopped in surprise. They looked up at their own umbrellas and seemed to feel that there was no more rain. When they tried to move the umbrella away, however, they were almost drenched by the rain. Then, they looked back at the person in front of them in shock. How was it possible for him to not get wet in the pouring rain? "We're here." Su Hao looked up at the grand building in front of him. In the rain, he could see a few large words that were still reflecting the light. White Elephant Battle Club. After leaving the headquarters of the Association of Sprite Trainers, Su Hao didn't return to Whale Island with Senior Wu. Instead, he headed south alone with his sprites. He stopped in dozens of cities and challenged the White Elephant Club everywhere. As a national chain, and even a rather famous battle club worldwide, White Elephant Club had top-level battlefields, and a lot of active sprite trainers gathered there every day. A group of battle fanatics was gathered. Su Hao was different from them. He just liked to go there for the experience bags, and was more picky. He didn't want low-level bags, and he wouldn't go for the same high-level experience bag twice. Therefore, he only stayed in each city for 1 to 2 days. Then, he went to the next city and started a hearty battle with sprite trainers from different areas. Target: go home before November. In the rain, he walked over slowly. At the entrance of the club, a boy and a girl immediately came up to him. The man was handsome. Of course, no more handsome than Su Hao was. The woman's figure was graceful and her face beautiful. She was worth an extra few more glances. Then, Su Hao walked into the club hall. The interior design was luxurious but low-key. If one didn't have good eyesight, they wouldn't be able to see that the pillars in front of them were made of precious materials. Clearly, the White Elephant Club had a lot of money. It was also related to the city it was located in. The more prosperous a city was, the larger the size of the White Elephant Club, and there would also be more sprite trainers. Zhongzhou City is indeed one of the largest cities in the country. The scale of this club isn't any smaller than those in Magic City and Jing City. There should also be a lot of sprite trainers here. I can consider staying for a few more days. Su Hao took out his black membership card and said to the club staff, "Prepare a medical team and the highest level supplies for me." "Ah. Yes, please wait a moment." After swiping his card and deducting the fees, Su Hao walked towards the advanced area. In the past, he used a temporary card at the White Elephant Club in Magic City. Now, it wasn't just a permanent membership card, but a supreme black gold card. There was only one reason: money. He was in no shortage of money, so there was no need for him to mistreat himself. Of course, the supreme black gold card couldn't just be bought with money alone. It was also a symbol of status, and coincidentally, his identity. Unknowingly, I'm actually a big shot in the eyes of ordinary sprite trainers. Even though I'm just a second-year university student. Speaking of second year, he remembered the video sent by Fatty Ren some time ago. A group of newbies brimming with youthfulness had already entered the school, and the challenge segment had already ended. Lu Ren said that this batch wasn't good. Even though there were 8 more elite-level sprite trainers when they entered the school, the whole challenge segment was still ordinary. There was no butterfly god to dominate the place. So, Fatty Ren enjoyed being the one to dominate over everyone else. That's right, during the challenge segment this year, Fatty Ren was one of the 8 tower protectors. So was Gu Linjiao. The strongest Li Songting, on the other hand, didn't manage to snatch the mission. Perhaps it was because it was too shameful for the second-year students to be wiped out the last time. When it was Fatty Wren and the others' turn to be the challengers, all of them were extremely steady, almost getting the new students to cry. The spectating instructors were very disappointed. They didn't expect an outstanding performance, but at the very least, couldn't they at least be half as good as Su Hao? All of this information was passed on to Su Hao by Big Mouth Lu. Su Hao wasn't at school, but his legend continued to spread in school. And the rumors were already far from the truth. With the black gold card, Su Hao could enjoy the best treatment. Apart from a medical team that came and went as they pleased, as well as countless medical supplements, which cost money, the best thing was the Phantom is challenging all the elite-level sprite trainers. Weaklings not allowed. You must be able to put up a fight. A loud and clear broadcast echoed throughout the entire battle club. The little loudspeaker made many sprite trainers who were resting, watching, and even fighting look up in surprise. Who is it? How arrogant! He's actually challenging all the sprite trainers? Do you know how many elite-level sprite trainers there are in our Zhongzhou city? I bet he can't last more than 3 of us. I hate people who use the speaker the most. You've actually never heard of Phantom? A veteran sprite trainer looked at the newcomers who didn't know anything and shook his head. A month ago, a sprite trainer traveled south and challenged dozens of sprite trainers from the White Elephant Club everywhere. He fought hundreds of rounds with just one elite-level sprite, and his win rate was above 90%. It's because the sprite he used was as dark as a shadow that he got the title of Phantom. He's publicly acknowledged to be very strong. It's said that there are even sprite trainers who are extremely regretful because they missed the battle with the Phantom. At this moment, a muscular man in the battle area burst into laughter. It's not in vain that I rushed here overnight on the high-speed rail. I guessed right, the Phantom's next stop is in Zhongzhou City. Today, I must defeat the Phantom. As long as I defeat the Phantom, I'll be able to join the Red Lotus Corporation's exploration team. It's just a matter of time before I reach the peak of my life. Ah ha 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 ha. The newbie in the club widened his eyes. In their mind, they could already picture a person sitting with his legs and arms crossed on the boss chair. The corners of his lips curled up into a devilish smile. The shadow behind him grew infinitely and shrouded everything. Hiss! Their bodies trembled. At this moment, someone suddenly shouted from the entrance of the advanced area, "The Phantom is here!" So he's the Phantom. Make way, let me see what the Phantom looks like. The rookies also went forward, stood on their toes, and looked around with all their might. Finally, they saw the person walking beside the club manager inside. Their eyes widened even more. He's actually that handsome. The experience bags in the White Elephant Club were all full of enthusiasm. They were all extremely happy to be there. Su Hao arrived at the advanced area, where the B1 battleground was. This was a simulated battlefield. As the name suggested, it was a simulation of real wild environments, which allowed sprites to accumulate more field battle experience. Despite looking real, it was still easily destroyed. Ordinary mountain rocks and trees were no different from tofu under elite-level destruction. After a battle, they had to change venues. Compared to the ordinary venues made of high-quality materials, this was the real VIP venue. Su Hao suspected that so many sprite trainers wanted to battle him because they wanted to take advantage and gain the experience from battling at the VIP venue. Su Hao stepped onto one side of the sprite commandeering platform, and immediately, a buzzing sound was heard. The alloy floor of the venue, which was about the size of a football field, separated to the sides, and in the next moment, a large green and grey field slowly rose. With a click, it connected precisely to the surrounding edges. The terrain was randomly chosen for the first round. Most of the venue was a swamp, with weeds growing all over it. The soil was brown, and there was a muddy area with an unknown depth. Su Hao started to summon his sprite. Su Hao stomped his feet. A few seconds passed, but the shadow below was still calm, forcing him to rely on calling the contract. The next moment, the shadow swayed slightly. A figure half black and half white with fluttering hair was thrown out. Su Hao had been challenging sprite trainers from all over the world all this time to help Bright Night Spirit gain experience. When the Bright Night Spirit achieved a sufficient foundation, Su Hao could arrange for it to evolve and help it reach its true battle power. This was the way that was best suited for the elite level Bright Night Spirit. Master levels weren't as common as cabbages, so Su Hao usually didn't fight one in the club. Occasionally, however, Su Hao would get too cocky and provoke one of the master level sprite trainers. When that happened, Yan would be the one to battle. But recently, my name has gradually spread among the clubs. People would stop getting offended despite my provocations, and I haven't been getting as many opponents as I once did, let alone opponents of the master level. Am I not cocky enough? Or maybe I haven't been throwing out enough insults. Su Hao couldn't help but wonder. Then, he saw that Bright Night Spirit, who was thrown out by Yan, was holding a phone in its hand. Phew-phew phew-phew. It held onto the phone tightly, its expression very focused. Only after a long while, did the Bright Night Spirit finally notice the difference in its environment. It looked up at Su Hao and became nervous. Phew-phew. The screen on the phone turned black and white. At this point, the palm-sized butterfly also flew out of his shadow. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. The battle isn't over? That's not a problem. Su Hao took the phone from Bright Night Spirit, pointed at the field and said, "Go and fight in peace. Leave the rest to me." Phew-phew. Phew-phew. Chapter 292, Yama Ghost King's Cultivation Method. Little Bright Night's eyes, which were half white, were dazed. Butterfly's face was also filled with disdain. Out of the 5 sprites, Big Fat Bear wasn't the smartest, Dazed Crow wasn't the most useful, and Yan lacked common sense. Bright Night Spirit, on the other hand, had already grown from a rookie to a general who could stand on his own. Its movements were conservative, but when it used its unique skill to attack, it was very decisive, sharp, and its operating style was surprisingly good. Su Hao was proud. At this point, under the screening of the club, the first opponent also boarded the Sprite commandeering platform. Sprite Trainer Joe, here to challenge. As he spoke, he summoned a giant cannon lobster. Su Hao glanced at it immediately. It was a giant cannon lobster that hadn't reached the limit of elite level, but it was cultivated pretty well. Su Hao gave it a score of 68 marks. There was a special area that had been trained on its body. Among the unique skills it mastered, there should also be 1 or 2 custom unique skills. However, there was no need for Su Hao to tell Little Bright Night all this. On the phone screen, the game character's revival countdown had already reached 0. In order to help Butterfly and the others win, Su Hao had no choice but to focus on the mobile game. Not only do I have to shit and pee, I also have to help sprites win their mobile games. Being a sprite trainer for these sprites really isn't easy. 10 minutes later. Another round. 30 minutes later. Continue, don't stop. Let's team up. I'll make up for it with a super soldier. I'm so well developed, do you really think you can insta-kill me? What the f***ck? That was a mistake, a mistake. Cough. At this point, the Bright Night Spirit had already fought 3 rounds and won all of them. It was resting in the middle of the battle venue. The swamp field in front of it was already full of holes, the damage was very serious. A staff member of the club instructed and the venue was changed immediately. Amidst the buzzing, the swamp piece sank and quickly changed to another piece of land. It was a rock field, with irregular and strange rocks everywhere. The whole field was also rising and falling. The rocky environment seems to be even harder to fight on. Su Hao glanced at it. He had a pretty good understanding of the White Elephant Club. The simulation on battlefield could change venues at any time. If a venue was damaged, it would change to another, however. The venue options were still fairly limited. There might only be 5 to 6 swappable venues under the battlefield. At that moment and underneath the ground, sprite trainers from the engineering department were probably already repairing the venue with earth, water, and wood element sprites. Little Bright Knight, on the other hand, was outside the arena, enjoying the full set of recovery services. It replenished spiritual force, recovered physical strength, soothed with music, and so on. A medical team and a few sprites also helped to recover it in all aspects. The effect was only slightly worse than the treatment pods of the special training camp. The only downside was that it needed a few minutes to recover. For the entire day, Little Bright Knight had battled a total of 28 rounds. Out of the 28, it only lost 2 rounds. In the club, those newcomers finally got to see just how powerful the legendary Phantom really was. After 28 rounds of battle, it had actually only lost 2 rounds. Furthermore, hey, but the Phantom barely gives its sprite any commands. Gasp. Wait, so you're saying we haven't even seen the true strength of the Phantom? Just how strong is this Phantom? They looked at the sprite commandeering platform on the right. They could only see the upper half of the figure standing on the platform. The Phantom's head was lowered slightly, as if he didn't even need to pay attention to the battlefield. Behind the figure, there seemed to be a huge shadow spreading, looking down at them with the fearful aura of a demon king. It had dominated over them without even having to do anything. The legendary Phantom indeed lives up to its name. Ah, why am I dead again? It must be the game's fault. Looking at the black and white screen and the slightly inferior score on it, Su Hao felt slightly. Should we just surrender? Gurgle Butterfly sighed. Well, we kinda have to at this point. It's getting late and we should get dinner. Gurgle. It was still considering when Big Fat Bear made a whimpering sound from its room inside the Gan-kun in the shadow, indicating that it was hungry. The main reason why Big Fat Bear kept dying in the game was because it was simply too hungry. Butterfly sighed again. At night, Su Hao stayed at the Sprite Square in Zhongzhou City. The whole square was a large-scale complex with commercial, residential, and training facilities. The residential facilities were all temporary accommodations provided for the various sprite trainers that had traveled from all over the world. In the courtyard, the dazed crow perched on a tree more than 10 meters tall, staring at the air in front of it. It seemed to be thinking, but also seemed to be in a daze. Suddenly, it flapped its wings. Bright red light blossomed in the night sky before disappearing in the blink of an eye. If only every sprite was as serious as Dazed Crow. Su Hao looked at the other side. Big Fat Bear was casting the Thunder God battlesuit absent-mindedly. It dispelled and cast over and over again. On the other hand, Dumb Unicorn had gathered all of the mist and turned it into a surrounding cloud, constantly changing its shape. It also made the cloud fly out as it tried to improve its maximum distance. During the exercise, the Dumb Unicorn's eyes kept glancing at the TV in the room. Butterfly, it doesn't matter what Butterfly was doing. Su Hao's gaze searched around again. With the intuition of a sprite trainer, he finally found Ayan in the shadows of a corner. Over the past month, under Su Hao's guidance and Ayan's continuous training, Ayan's Gan-kun in the shadow had already made great improvements. The space inside was still 40 to 50 meters in area and was 5 to 6 meters tall, but its stability had already increased countless times. It would no longer have to spit out the extraordinary level sprites it swallowed. The first stage of Gan-kun in the shadow cultivation was almost completed. The second stage was to expand the space and divide it up into different areas. At the third stage, the Yama Ghost King is expected to incorporate itself into the shadow space, or even forcefully absorb the enemy. Then, Gan-kun in the shadow could be added to the combat list. That's right. Every stage of cultivation needs to be unlocked individually. It's very expensive. Puff. Yama Ghost King emerged from the ground and made indescribable sounds. After greeting Su Hao, it returned to its shadow. The interface showed that Yama Ghost King was cultivating. Yes, cultivation. Ayan's way of becoming stronger was different from ordinary sprites. The cultivation method of ordinary sprites was to devour, eat nutritional supplements such as jade powder, and then supplement it with training. Then, the various attributes of the sprite would slowly improve. It was also jokingly known as the money-costing cultivation method. Ayan was different. It didn't have high requirements for jade powder. Instead, it just needed to absorb spiritual aura. As long as there were people around, it could absorb their emitted vitality. Absorbing and refining spiritual aura was a big part of its cultivation method. Thus, the bustling city was the best cultivation venue for Ayan. Su Hao then glanced at the room at the side. At this moment, Little Bright Knight, who had been exhausted from fighting for an entire day, was lifelessly resting on its bed. Su Hao felt that this wouldn't do, so he went forward to console him. Pull yourself together. Your accumulation is almost done. I'll arrange an evolution for you tomorrow. Phew. It called out in surprise. Su Hao nodded affirmatively and thought to himself. After evolving, it would still have to fight at least dozens or hundreds more battles before it could consolidate its strength and catch up to its seniors. Chapter 293, Evolution. Eternal Night Glory Concubine. The development level of the Bright Night Spirit was still quite far away from the elite level limit. Originally, Su Hao had planned to wait for Bright Night Spirit to develop to its maximum potential to try to break through to the extraordinary level in one go. Time waits for no one. There were less than 4 months left until the Supernova Cup. If one were to ask how Su Hao felt at this moment, he would say that he felt exhausted, extremely exhausted. Su Hao didn't know how many inheritance slots there were left, but it was definitely very few. And the opponents were the most outstanding sprite trainers from all over the world under the age of 30. I'm not even confident that I can even qualify to compete for the Dragon Nation slot. Even among peers of the same age, I'm probably not the strongest, let alone being stronger than these 30-year-old uncles and aunties. Su Hao was still a 19-year-old child. Why don't we wait for the next batch? Senior Wu said that the Supernova Cup is held every 3 years. I can still participate when I'm 22, 25, and 28, but... Su Hao couldn't control himself. Just how many strong experts under the age of 30 were there? Su Hao couldn't find any relevant information. After all, the higher the level, the higher the confidentiality level of information. Similarly, it was also difficult for others to understand the level of his sprite. Su Hao could only guess his opponent's approximate strength with the limited clues and experience he had. The trump cards of the uncles and aunties are definitely going to be very strong. My only advantage right now is probably that I don't have any shortcomings. At the very least, I need to increase Bright Night Spirit's strength. In conclusion, Su Hao wanted all 6 of his sprites to be extraordinary. Single point explosion, mass destruction, strong shield defense, scouting perception, healing assistance, spatial tools. Everything needed to be very comprehensive. Therefore, Su Hao had already arranged a whole set of strengthening strategies for Bright Night Spirit. Phew. Zhongzhou City was a big city. Naturally, the evolution venues here were also much higher level than in city. It was enough for the evolution of the Bright Night Spirit, so there was no need for Su Hao to go out of his way and make a trip back to Whale Island University. Hello, I'm the sprite trainer who made an appointment at the Extreme Darkness Arena yesterday. Please follow me. The evolution area was a huge garden area. There were evolutionary venues with different environments inside, as if they were strolling through a worldwide theme park. As they walked forward, the light gradually dimmed. In front of them appeared a venue that covered an area of several hundred square meters with dark nether grass growing inside. Even through the special glass wall, one could intuitively feel the rich, substantial dark element spiritual force. It was a top-notch dark element evolution venue. But to Bright Night Spirit, such a venue was still not enough. Su Hao needed to make some modifications. Su Hao had already informed the staff of the evolution area the day before. He had also handed unimportant tasks such as material collection to the staff. Leasing, materials, and labor costs alone were already costing Su Hao several million yuan. Su Hao was a big fat big customer. The staff member in the suit had a bright smile on his face and almost said, "You can do whatever you want." It was slightly awkward for Su Hao to hear this from another man. Su Hao took the materials and waved. "Open the door. I'll do the rest myself." "Sir, I can." "No, you can't." Su Hao stepped into the evolution field known as the Dark Garden, his gaze swept up and down, and he thought for 0.5 seconds. Let's start, butterfly, embed the materials according to the way I drew the blueprint yesterday. Yan, take out the box marked 003. Immediately, butterfly, which was lying on Su Hao's head, flicked its hair in a daze. It activated psychic power, and the materials box opened automatically. Materials of light element flew out and landed one after another, slightly lighting up the dark garden that was filled with large amounts of dark element spiritual force. It was as if stars had appeared in the night sky. At this moment, a white box suddenly appeared under Su Hao's feet. With a click, he opened the box. In an instant, beams of dazzling light blossomed. They were actually light elemental crystals inside. The staff member outside the room was stunned. There were a total of 10 light elemental crystals, from the size of a pebble to the size of a fist. Su Hao tapped 5 of them and said, "One over there, one over there." Then, he got Yan to take out a dark elemental crystal and arrange it slightly further away. In less than 2 minutes, he alone had laid out an evolution venue that was as valuable as 2 riverside villas in Zhongzhou City. Su Hao went out the door. Outside, Dazed Crow, Big Fat Bear, and Dumb Unicorn had already begun cheering for Little Bright Knight. But after listening for a while, Dazed Crow suddenly said, "Don't be afraid. Just keep slashing forward, squawk." Big Fat Bear, evolution is a very simple thing, just like how I helped you increase your stats in the mobile game, howl. Dumb Unicorn, waves, waves. Nay. The Bright Knight Spirit's head spun around and around. When it saw Su Hao, it immediately floated over. Su Hao petted its head. "Go. Remember, keep the light and darkness in your body balanced." The real difficult part of the Eternal Night Glory Concubine pathway was the evolution from a ball of light to a bright night spirit. Transforming from the light attribute to the light and dark attribute required precise control and balance. Thus, it was actually simpler for Bright Night Spirit to evolve from a Bright Night Spirit to the Eternal Night Glory Concubine. It could already maintain its balance by itself, so there was no need for Su Hao to deliberately keep track of the time. All he needed to do was to set up a decent venue, and the Bright Night spiritual energy would maintain the state of both light and dark surfaces. The door of the dark garden opened and closed again. There was only Bright Night Spirit left inside. Seeing it turn its head to look over, Su Hao nodded at it. Butterfly, which was on top of Su Hao's head, waved its little fists. Even Yan, who was in the shadows, showed his head. It almost scared the staff member to death. In the arena, the already half-cooked Bright Night Spirit took out its elemental essence and swallowed it. 15 light element teams and 15 dark element teams floated to the center of the field and settled down quietly. In an instant, wisps of white and black threads appeared, constantly interweaving into a huge light cocoon, wrapping around it. The appearance of the light cocoon was very special. Half of it was black and the other half was white. The middle part was vaguely distorted, but it was also being sucked by the Bright Night Spirit. The two opposing energies were relatively balanced. The evolution of the Bright Night Spirit was somewhat risky. If its two types of energy balance couldn't be maintained, it might fail at the last step. There was probably a 0.002% chance of failure. Su Hao kept his eyes fixed on it. As time passed, no accidents happened. About an hour later, kaka, kaka. In the center of the arena, cracks appeared on the huge light cocoon. The next moment, bang! White and black light beams suddenly flew up and wrapped around each other, colliding in the air more than 10 meters high. Dazzling light and extreme darkness blossomed together. In the light and darkness, a dreamy figure appeared and slowly floated down from the sky. Ding! Your sprite, bright night spirit, has completed its evolution and become a new form, Eternal Night Glory Concubine, changeable. Ding! Your sprite has acquired new characteristics from the evolution ritual baptism. Chapter 294, Eternal Night Glory Concubine's First Battle, Star Explosion. Eternal Night Glory Concubine, who was slowly drifting down from the sky, revealed an exquisite face and a human-like body. It was wearing a Lolita dress, with the hem covering all the way to its boots. From its boots, dress, and gloves on its hands, its entire body was separated into white on the left side and black on the right side. Black and white met in the middle. It wore a half-face mask, and its eyes couldn't be seen. Only its mouth and dancing hair could be seen. Compared to its fuzzy figure before its evolution, its current appearance was very clear and exquisite. Rings of white and black halos spread around its body, like a princess from a fairy tale. As expected of a sprite with the name Concubine. Su Hao opened the interface. Sprite, Eternal Night Glory Concubine. Attributes, Light, Dark. Level, Elite Level High Level. Characteristics, Body of Light and Darkness. Click to unfold. Unique skill, Shield of Light, Light of Healing, Chain Improved, Light of Purification, Holy Healing, Light Energy Ball, Extreme Light, Extreme Day, Light Flash, Dark Energy Ball, Shadow Path, Dark Touch, Dark Night Curse, Extreme Night, Dark Star Cluster. Profound, Yin-Yang Balance. Talent ability, none. Cultivation plan, omitted. Special cultivation. 1. Light and Darkness Fusion. In a balanced state, light and darkness fuse according to ratio, producing power several times stronger. 2. Unique form of light and darkness, Glorious Sun Princess / Eternal Night Princess, in development. Evolutionary pathway. Light Ball Bright Night Spirit Eternal Night Glory Concubine Pitch Black, unlockable, unlock with 3 intelligence points. With a thought. Ding! The advancement list of sprites Eternal Night Glory Concubine has been unlocked. Please take a look. Just then. Advancement direction. 3. Body of Light and Darkness Evolution, Compatibility, 91%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 2. Dark Light Evolution, Compatibility, 96%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 3. Obsidian Evolution, Compatibility, 96%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. 6. Flaming Body Evolution, Compatibility, 91%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. Quadratic Evolutions, Compatibility level 79%, unlock with 12 intelligence points. After evolution, the greatest gain for it should be the characteristic of the body of light and darkness. Before its evolution, it had 2 characteristics at the Bright Night Spirit stage, light of healing and darkness erosion, but the body of light and darkness itself contained these 2 characteristics. Moreover, with the body of light and darkness characteristic, Eternal Night Glory Concubine no longer needed to constantly maintain the balance of energy in its body at all times. Its body in itself was a source of balance. It could also smoothly turn into pure light or pure darkness. It could continuously switch between the two without any delay. In front of Su Hao, Eternal Night Glory Concubine alternated between Fufu and Et. That black and white dress was also constantly changing between pure white and pure black. The speed at which it was changing was much faster than before its evolution and was truly seamless. One moment, it was standing there with its hands crossed, looking dignified, and the next moment, it was constantly flashing like a ghost, letting out strange laughter. Su Hao wondered whether its condition had worsened. White Elephant Club, Advanced Area. Many sprite trainers who were fighting today were a little distracted. Why didn't the Phantom come yesterday? That doesn't sound right. According to my research, the Phantom will stay in the big city for 2 to 3 more days. Why did he leave so soon? DMN, if I didn't suddenly have a stomach ache the day before yesterday, it would have been my turn. He's just a slightly famous sprite trainer, what's the big deal? The only reason why he has such a high win rate is because he hasn't met a real expert yet. Different voices came from the crowd. The young man in casual clothes and earrings said, "In my opinion, the Phantom is probably just afraid of sprite trainers from Zhongzhou City like ourselves. If he had stayed for a few more days, he wouldn't be winning consecutively, but losing continuously. Don't you think so, Brother Li?" He looked at the young man in front of him on the left, changing to a fawning expression. However, the young man surnamed Li ignored him. He just turned his head and looked towards the entrance. Suddenly, someone shouted, "The Phantom is here!" The Battle Club's experience bag welcomed Su Hao with warm hospitality. Before even using the loudspeaker, a group of people had already gone up to greet Su Hao. Just how lonely are they? But it made sense when Su Hao thought more about it. Who else could make a medical team stand by 24 hours a day like him? Supplies were offered for free, and he could fight dozens of rounds in a single day. Oh, I forgot to mention, the one fighting today is Little Bright Knight. No, I should call him Little Funo. And Fufu. Fu. Fu it is. Su Hao stood on the sprite commandeering. At this point, he got the club to raise the screening conditions to the limit of elite level, and filtered out anyone weaker than that. There were still many sprite trainers that stood forward, eager to fight Su Hao. One after another, battle maniacs argued over who should be the first to fight. Suddenly, "Manager Wang, arrange for me to be the first." The battle maniacs were stunned. They looked over with widened eyes and saw a young man walking over. It's Li Si. Young Master Li Si. He's the Zhongzhou City's boss Li's only son, Li Si. That's him. But he's not just a rich second-generation heir, he's also a core disciple of Flame Sect. Gasp. I heard that there are only 8 core disciples in Flame Sect, and their eldest senior brother is even a Heavenly King level big boss, then. If he was just a high-level rich second-generation heir, the battle fanatics present might not even care about him, or even consider him as an enemy. But the status of a core disciple of Flame Sect was different. That sect leader didn't care about money when taking in a disciple. No one could compare to the sect leader in wealth anyway. The fact that Li Si could become the disciple of that sect master could only mean that he was very, very outstanding. But he's such a strong person, why does he have to earn the right to fight the Phantom? Outside the arena, the other sprite trainers were depressed. Li Si, who had just entered the arena, suddenly widened his eyes. This sprite, it's not the one I've heard about. Li Si took out the sprite commandeering wristband and scanned it. After a beep, the result of appeared on the icon scanner of the wristband. He was stunned. It can't be those extremely rare sprites that aren't even found in the country, right? Rare didn't mean strong, but it was definitely a symbol of preciousness, a symbol of money, and status. Li Si had to admit that he was jealous. The only thing he could do now was to defeat it. Go, burning-eyed fire fox! A fiery red fox with ghostly white flames in its eyes and a fluffy big tail appeared on the forest field. 200 meters away was the eternal night glory concubine hovering in the air. After confronting each other for a few seconds, the burning-eyed fire fox attacked brazenly. Clusters of dark white flames appeared around its body, its aura gradually rising. White mist also surrounded it, and layers of ice spread on the ground. It's a special flame. Su Hao pondered. Flame Sect is really good at fusing special fire seeds with unique skills and secret techniques to maximize the power of the fire seed. As for the burning-eyed fire fox, it has fused with more than one fire seed. All of them are fire seeds with freezing properties. They are superimposed with each other using special methods. The dazed crow had also fused with an ordinary fire seed, but it was only on the foundation of the flaming feather form and sun form, and didn't extend much on it. Su Hao's interest was piqued. On the field, clusters of ghostly white flames flew out and shot over like arrows. When Su Hao saw this, he raised his hand and blasted out dark energy balls. The two collided. It can even freeze unique skills. The dark energy ball was swallowed. Eternal Night Glory Concubine could only transform into a phantom and retreat. In front of it, wherever the ghostly white flames passed, white frost quickly formed. Trees were frozen and then turned to ashes. The characteristics of ice and fire were perfectly displayed. As expected of a top sect in the country. Fu, who was as charming as a shadow, only lasted for 4 to 5 seconds before getting trapped into a dead end. The defensive lines formed by light shields could also only last for a short while. Then, Dark Star Cluster. Its gothic Lolita dress turned pure black like ink. Circles of black light burst out from its body. It looked as if Eternal Night Glory Concubine had turned into a black hole. The next moment, a black screen covered the entire venue. In the dark night sky, balls fell like meteorites. Dark element unique skill Dark Star Cluster. With a howl, the stars fell. Unfortunately, the Eternal Night Glory Concubine was still only an elite level skill. A unique skill could cover the whole arena, but there were still quite a lot of gaps left. It was not enough to defeat the burning-eyed fire fox. Light surface form, light flash. In an instant, the black gothic Lolita suit turned pure white. Its hair was as bright as snow now, shining brightly. In the sky, the ink-like black balls suddenly produced white light, emitting a piercing brilliance. At this moment, the burning-eyed fire fox was dodging strategically. The dark white flames at the bottom of its eyes burned brightly. Frost appeared on the black balls where its eyes were fixed, and they turned into ashes and dissipated in less than 2 seconds. Li Si's eyes suddenly widened. Beams of light appeared. The dark energy and light energy of the dark star cluster mixed together and exploded. The light pierced through the darkness. Darkness engulfed the light. Time seemed to have frozen. Everything in front of him melted like snow. Dark white flames, trees, soil, and rocks were all turned into powder in a flash of white and black. Boom! The rumbling was deafening. The defense barrier around the field flickered, and an ear-piercing alarm sounded. After a while, when the light and darkness dissipated, there was only a base plate left on the field in front of him. The burning-eyed fire fox had collapsed in a corner, barely breathing. Chapter 295, Eldest Senior Brother of the Flame Sect. Dark Star Cluster, Star Explosion. This was the first time it was used after evolving into the Eternal Night Glory Concubine. Su Hao looked at the battlefield in front of him that was almost blasted through. At this moment, he only had one thought, that move was dangerous. That burning-eyed fire fox almost died. The damage to the whole venue was also very serious. If it wasn't repaired for a period of time, it couldn't be used again. Outside the arena, the sprite trainers were stunned. They were battle maniacs, but not masochists. They had previously wanted to challenge Su Hao because they still had a certain degree of faith in their own abilities. However, with such a big difference in strength, it was no longer a battle but a one-sided beating. If it weren't for the burning-eyed fire fox's battle skills being high enough to hide itself in a corner of the battlefield just now, it would have died instantly. That sprite was an extraordinary draped in elite-level skin. Sprite trainers who were ranked behind Li Si suddenly came up with all sorts of excuses as to why they had to leave. "I have a stomachache," I need to answer a phone call, I have a friend in trouble. In the blink of an eye, everyone scattered, but they didn't really leave. They just hid in a corner, trying to see if the battle would continue. Of course it did not. The damage to the arena was too serious. The battle power of the Eternal Night Glory Concubine had also somewhat exceeded Su Hao's expectations. The battle maniacs didn't dare to fight. Su Hao also didn't care much for these experience bags. Before its evolution, the elite level limit was already very threatening, but now, even sprites like the burning-eyed fire fox, who have mastered unique secret manuals and infused precious treasures, whose battle power is second to none among the elite level limit, were no match for Efu. Then who else is able to fight Efu? I might have miscalculated. Of course, Eternal Night Glory Concubine still struggled a bit to win. Its current strength was still much weaker than Dumb Crow or Big Fat Bear in the early stages of the league. The shortcomings were obvious. One problem. Eternal Night Glory Concubine currently lacks life-saving abilities. In the future, I'll arrange for it to learn more displacement unique skills. When it develops to the limit of elite level, I'll arrange high-intensity battles to help it break through. From the breakthroughs of Dazed Crow and Dumb Unicorn, Su Hao understood that a correct high-intensity battle could help in breaking through. He also wasn't worried about the fact that Eternal Night Glory Concubine was too strong to find worthy opponents. Whale Island University had a large number of upper-middle rank elite level sprites. And if that doesn't work out, he still had Butterfly and the other 5 extraordinary students in the team to apply pressure on Eternal Night Glory Concubine. Efu's current cultivating conditions were pretty good. Efu, who was suspended in mid-air, felt a chill all over his body. Black energy emerged and surrounded his body as he looked around warily. Efu. When Su Hao walked down, he came across the sprite trainer called Li Si. He was carrying his burning-eyed fire fox and walking over with a gloomy face. He didn't say anything harsh, just a little unsatisfied. If only he could have a rematch, but even so. I didn't expect your sprite to unleash such a big mood that it ended up covering the entire venue. Among the canon-type sprites, I'm willing to recognize it as the strongest, second only to the extraordinary level sprites. Su Hao was speechless. Li Si continued to speak, our Flame Sect has a branch and is also good at artillery and bombardment. How about it, do you want to visit our dojo? I'll give you a 20% discount on unique skills and profound meanings. I wouldn't just give this to anyone. The young man in casual clothes following behind Li Si had a resentful look on his face when he heard those words. That resentment seemed to be about to overflow. He even glared at Su Hao. Then. Yes, I've long heard of the great name of Flame Sect. Su Hao had planned to visit the Flame Sect dojo anyway. Now that he had a recommendation from a disciple, it was even better. It was just that. My Eternal Night Glory Concubine, it's not a canon-type sprite. Under Li Si's "you must be teasing me" expression, Su Hao gave Efu a small look. Just then, Eternal Night Glory Concubine, who was in a balanced state, raised its white-gloved left hand and waved it gently. Warm light sprinkled down, enveloping Li Si's burning-eye fire fox. The miserable-looking burning-eyed fire fox's injuries actually healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Its recovery speed was much faster than the professional medical sprites beside it. Li Si, what the F***ck? The Fire Sect dojo was the top-level dojo in Dragon Nation. What made it a top-level dojo? For a sect to become a top-level dojo, it needed at least 2 Heavenly King-level big bosses to spend more than 10 years in the dojo and a certain number of nurtured experts. Including the Heavenly King Fire King, Fire Sect dojo had produced a total of 4 Heavenly Kings. The other 3 were the second-generation Sect Master, the current eldest senior brother of the Fire Sect dojo, and Heavenly King Yan, who had graduated from the Fire Sect dojo and was currently the president of the Tianese Province Association. The one who gave Su Hao the recommendation letter. This information couldn't be found on the internet. It was information that Su Hao found at the guild headquarters a month ago. We're here. Li Si, his resentful sidekick, and Su Hao arrived at the front of the Fire Sect dojo. At this moment, classes were being held at the Fire Sect dojo. On the empty field, there were many sprite trainers sitting on mats. The younger ones were only in their teens, while the older ones were 40 to 50. Together with their sprites, they listened attentively to the young man's lecture. That's our eldest senior brother. Li Si lowered his voice and said. He was said to be a heavenly king-tier big boss who had advanced only 2 years ago. He had a very young face and was at most in his 30s. He had a gentle smile on his face and was talking about how to temper pressure and fuse flames. Su Hao didn't pay the tuition fee, but since he was already here, he wasn't going to shut his ears and not listen. He found a seat and sat down. He also called out the dazed crow. Half an hour later, the class ended. The students left in groups of 2 or 3. Some went straight out of the training hall, while others went to the battle area at the side and called up their friends to study and practice the content of the lesson just now. Little Si. The gentle young man walked over, followed by a standing demonic flame pig. Eldest senior brother, he's the one I just. Just as Li Si spoke, the gentle young man said, I know him. He looked at Su Hao. Su Hao, right? I heard Uncle Master Xia talk about you. That's your flaming spirit crow, right? As expected, it seems to have been cultivated very well. When they started talking about the cultivation of fire element sprites, the eldest senior brother was surprised to discover that this young man in front of him had very profound insight. Su Hao didn't know any less than himself, who specialized in fire element. Of course, they were all talking about the mid and low-level knowledge. It also made eldest senior brother feel that this person was a natural fire element sprite trainer. He considered Su Hao to be very compatible with the flame sect. Learn to melt fire from me, young man. With a swish, he took out a list of skills that could be learned from melt fire. What do you want to learn? I'll give you a 60% discount. At this moment, Li Si, who was being ignored, quietly looked at the 2 people chatting happily in front of him. He was a little dazed. I was the one to have introduced you to. Just as he thought of this, he heard his eldest senior brother say, that flaming spirit crow of yours has an extraordinary fire of its own. Are you interested in a battle? It's just nice to broaden the horizons of the students.